Welcome to I Change the Narrative, a podcast centered around Black men and inspiring, supporting, and empowering Black men and Black boys. This episode of I Change the Narrative is sponsored by So Organic, So Suave, also known as Sauce. Sauce is a luxury hair care and skincare refuge for those with thick hair and melanin rich skin. From healthy hair, beard growth to top of head hair styling to an illuminating skincare regimen. Sauce Essentials will naturally enhance your outer appearance to strengthen your inner confidence. Sauce invites you to accept the authenticity and real self care and embrace your best. You can find Sauce's award winning grooming essentials online at sossd.co. Again, that's sossd.co. You can also follow Sauce on Instagram. And for the latest in product news and updates at sossd.co. Elevate your grooming with Sauce today. Today's topic, we're talking about resolving childhood trauma as adult Black males. But before we start the conversation, I want our guests to tell us all about yourself, where you're from, and the work you're involved in that lends itself to the topic or the lived experience. We're going to start with Justice.
All right. Peace, everyone. My name is Justice Payne Tyson. On social media, I'm known as the neighborhood therapist. I'm a Black man in America, doing what I can do best. I'm originally from Paterson, New Jersey. I'm repping Houston. That is home now. That is where my wife resides, so that is home. Um, while doing licensed therapy, what I do is my specialty is Black men being misunderstood. It's also a podcast, but overall, it's a movement. I'm the owner of All Us We Counseling out there in Houston. I'm also a clinical director with the Neighborhood Counseling Foundation in New Jersey. Shout out to y'all. Just doing big things. I'm also the creator and the founder of Auto Therapy, which is basically essentially you do therapy in the car with your therapist driving you around and that whole spiel. So that'll be out later in 2023, full throttle. So we're moving over here. Nice to meet y'all.
I love it. Full throttle. Mike.
Hello, good people. My name is Michael Bennett. I am originally from Paterson, New Jersey. I am of Jamaican descent. Both my parents were born and raised in Jamaica. Moved up here. I currently reside in Tampa, Florida. I am a project manager, career-wise. But what I do outside of that is I've always been a big part in the church. Ever since I was little growing up to now. So the church has always been my avenue to be an outreach and help to other people. And it's caused me connections with different other people. Currently, now I'm still a mentor, even though I'm far away from Paterson, for the Teens to Be Heard organization in Paterson. Actually, currently right now, they have their trunk or treat going on for the community. That usually we choose one of the days during the weekend of Halloween and open up our trunks to the people of Paterson. And it's basically for kids at the age of 12 and younger. And then we have our teens volunteer as a community service, a part of it. So that's one thing I've been a part for the last several years. And also I mime. I was part of the Men of Valor group back in my home church in Paterson. But as we grow older, the members of the group, people moving on with their lives and things decided to change. I took on more of a mentor role to different groups in the tri-state area. And most recently, it was a group in Elizabeth called Sons of Zion. I'm still kind of their mentor far away. A lot of the young men are now in college, and they're still trying to push through with the ministry. But I'm still a hopeful ear. But I haven't been as hands-on because I recently just got married last weekend. So, yep.
Congratulations. Thank you, gentlemen. I do not have an intro for this topic. I just realized that it is a needed conversation as our culture vents on our socials, in conversations, and in true real time. This show is dedicated to our Black men who are bleeding, working through the process, and to those Black men who are healing, doing the work to heal in the moment. Gentlemen, please take your time with this conversation. I want to start off with Mike B, as he has a story behind why he's on the show, um, why he is here for this particular conversation. Go ahead, Mike.
So, most people who do know me and know me personally know I lost my mom at a very young age. Literally, it was a month away from before my 12th birthday. Um, so that's part of a trauma that I grew up with my entire life, basically growing up without my mom. And then add to that is also when I was younger, yeah, my father. I lived with my father. Father was there, but as I've mentioned on our podcast, which I forgot to mention, that was part of the podcast also. Um, my father wasn't really there. Like you see him, they'll go to work, but he wasn't around for the stuff I deemed important for him to be around. So it kind of goes into that fatherlessness that our generation specifically that we dealt with growing up, and a lot of our friends and family dealt with it also. So um, that would probably be both sides of the coins that I'm coming from trauma wise. Um, to me, I honestly never really thought of it as trauma. But as I grew older, it's definitely part of trauma because like I was the kid to think, but like, all right, my mom's not here. Recently, because I got married, my first dance with my mom was gonna happen. My sister happened to fill that role, which she's been a blessing in my life, my entire life, and everyone who knows that. So that was a big part of things. But like I think every achievement that I've made for myself or my siblings has made, and she wasn't around for it. It like it'll hurt, but I think I've gotten to the point where I'm like, she's smiling down, looking at me and my brothers and my sister at this point. So yeah, it's trauma, but I deal with it in probably in such a healthy way. Um, it makes it wouldn't make sense to someone unless you actually been in my shoes or heard my full story.
Right.
Another piece that most people wouldn't even connect with what I do with myself, period, is that anything that I've done after my mom died, it was dedicated to her.
Mm.
So most people would think, like, because Jessica can attest to this when we were growing up, everyone around us was starting to play football. And I was like one of the last ones to play. And like, yo, Mike, why don't you play? Come out, come out. And I always was like, no, I don't know. I didn't really know the full rules of the game and everything.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until my mom died where I needed an avenue. I didn't realize, but I needed an avenue to get my anger out,
Right.
and football was that avenue. Um, and then sports became that avenue, and then the add on to that, dancing has always been a thing of mine, but dancing for the church became that avenue also for me. Um, uh, and so like anything that I do, it's like it's a representation of my mom because my mom was a caring, loving individuals and always embraced people that she knew that was good people. Hence, me and my friendship with Just and a lot of other people and my extended family outside my immediate and blood relatives. So,
Thank you for sharing that. So now I want to get into this conversation. What is childhood trauma, first of all?
go ahead, bro. You got this.
So I've been thinking about that a lot. Being an adult and being a child and going through the trauma, I gotta say is really just depends on how you view it. Because what's trauma to one person may not be trauma to the other person. So literally, I was just thinking about it. Um, I got a homeboy who's deathly terrified of Texas roaches. I don't know if y'all know about Texas roaches. They about this big and they fly. So there's somebody that like he sees it and he'll scream and he goes back to childhood and I'll just be looking. I'm like, just hit it with a sandal. But again, me not understanding that's trauma to him. It's attached to something else. So to me, childhood trauma is something that you have to identify either in therapy or in a healthy way where you understand it as you get wiser, and you have to start dealing with it immediately.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is that no one else outside of that person can define trauma for that particular person.
Right.
And then also I hear you saying that you have to deal with the trauma in a healthy way. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Mike, you wanted to add something?
Well, he's the therapist. I'm just chiming in on stuff that I've noticed. Now he's definitely 100% true on that, because like it wasn't until I was older to like actually think that like all that stuff is trauma to me. And with us doing a podcast, is like it started opening up other doors, like conversations that me and him would have personally, right? And then we're bringing it now on the air, and just trying to tell people how we coped or dealt with the situation, and not even thinking about it. It was like, oh yeah, that was trauma to me. Like me not having my father around, that's trauma for me. I get triggered about certain stuff. Me not having my mom there, that's trauma. I get triggered about certain stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the triggers could be something positive that I do with it, or it could be something negative.
Mm-hmm.
Which they're both sides of that. And like I may talk about a lot more of the positive stuff, but I'm not gonna lie here and say there hasn't been any negative thoughts or negative actions that I've done to put me in bad situations and stuff like that I had to overcome myself and realize that was a piece of that.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mike. So I hear you saying that you can either choose to deal with that trauma in a positive way or in a negative way.
Mm.
Yep.
And did you decide how to deal with this trauma in a positive way in your adulthood or in your childhood?
So I'll start with my mom. So I kind of already hinted to this.
Okay.
So when my mom died, people would think, oh, they about to go buck wild, or they don't have that stability. They don't know what to do. That was the complete opposite of me growing up. So me losing my mom, my sister stepped in immediately, and she's always been a positive role model for me and my brothers. But I give my sister most of the credit for the stuff that my mom instilled in us, and
Mm-hmm.
she continued it once she was gone. So like I honestly, with my mom's situation, it for the most part everything has been mostly positive, because the first thing and just wouldn't even know this unless I told them, like anything that I've done, right, positive in my, like, would it make my mom spot? And I've always questioned stuff like that in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I don't outright say it publicly all the time. I've gotten to say it more as I've gotten older, and specifically how we're doing the podcast now and giving more of me to the world. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but growing up, I always would question like certain stuff, like even if it was a traumatic because my father not being around, or traumatic with my mom not being around, I always ask myself, would my mom smile at me for doing this? Um, so that's had always been like the positive voice in the back of my head, um, of doing the positive things. Now, when it comes to negative things, it's just like sometimes you get to the point where you're like, man, I'm tired of trying to do everything the right way. Funk
Mm-hmm.
this. I'm gonna try it a different way, because a lot of people would tell you, they would think I was Mr. Goody Two Shoes or the golden child, how people would say, because I always try to do everything the right way.
Right.
But most people don't even know, though there were times where I was like, forget that, I'm gonna do this. Um, and that was a detriment to me. Like, I could definitely express like me getting a whole DUI. I got a DUI, and most people will look at me and be like, oh no, he never had a DUI. No way, Michael wouldn't do that.
Right.
Yeah, Michael did do that. It was, and it's so funny to me because like we were talking about this last weekend or a couple of days ago,
Mhm.
when all the grooms were together. And my brothers are part of it. One of my brother's Joe, when he found out of what happened that night with my DUI, the man could not believe it. He was a junior in college at this point, and he could not believe it. He was like, "Michael, my
Mhm.
brother Michael, you sure it was that? You sure it was him? You sure you're not pranking me?" Like it was that unbelievable of him because it was so out of character for me
Right.
to do. So
I
yeah, it's I try to do as much positive as I can, but also with those traumas, there's a point where you just get fed up for trying to be positive as you can and be like, no, I'm just gonna do it anyway. Yeah.
wow. Thank you. How does childhood trauma affect or show up in adulthood for Black men physically and then mentally across the life course?
Mm. I'm trying to tackle that physical one. I think I'm gonna have to come back to it.
Okay.
Uh, Mentally though, I can speak to that for myself. I am the way I am with women in general, especially Black women because of my trauma. Um, I'm a no holds bar type of guy. If I see you, push a woman a certain type of way, I'm stepping up. Hey, yo, what you doing? Like I'm really him because of the trauma that I go through with seeing things that happened to my mother. I'm just really anal about that.
Mhm.
So it's a mental thing for sure.
Okay.
Um, it adds stress for sure. I guess I'm going into the physical now.
Okay.
Um, Hands sweaty. I gave Mike a little piece of this, but basically, with some of my trauma, I've been shot at multiple times. So in Texas, it's a gun carrying state, legal law abiding citizen. So I'm a legal law abiding citizen when it comes to that. But I'll go to a stop sign, and when I stop, I'm peering and paying. It's kind of like paranoia. I'm paying attention to everything that's around me, and if a car is following me to too many stop signs, I immediately have my gun on my hip
Right.
ready. You see what I'm saying? And that's a physical trauma because I can feel the tenseness. My heart is doing this. I'm just getting. It's a preparation factor.
Mhm.
Um, it's not the worst thing in the world because you should be able to survive. It's kind of like that adrenaline kicks in. But then again, it's like when the people drive by me and you see that these people not even worried about you. It's like, what did you get worked up for?
Mhm.
And you got to calm yourself down. It's just like you're supposed to be driving. Now,
Mhm.
granted, driving is a rough task for some people. Some
Right.
people trauma, right?
Right.
Facts.
But for me, it's not. It's not something that bothers me. But when something like that happens, because I'm thinking about, hey, this is how I grew up. At any moment, somebody can ride up and just shoot two through the window. Immediately, I can feel my blood tense. It's a lot.
Mhm.
Definitely feels that's the physical aspect of it.
Mhm.
Mentally, like I said, you gotta go get some type of healing for that
Mhm.
because paranoia. You can start looking at people that you love in your life and thinking that they're saying things to you that they're not. You
Mm.
can get really, really defensive,
Mm.
especially if you don't have boundaries. That's another
Mhm.
thing with trauma. Trauma and boundaries go hand in hand because if you don't know how to say no, somebody can be triggering you and they're going to keep triggering you. And then that
Hmm.
adds some manipulation. It's so many things tied in with the physical and mental, but
Mhm.
phenomenal question.
Okay. Mike, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add the physical part definitely for sure. The tension of people following, I've gone through it myself, but mine comes from a different way of thinking. Like, yes, we grew up in Patterson, grew up in a rough neighborhood. I never been shot at, luckily. But always had my head on the swivel, like just certain stop signs. You're looking certain ways. You're looking at certain cars, and if I always look at all my mirrors when I'm driving, and when I see a same car, like I switch a lane switch. I get off the exit, they get off the exit. They going straight. I'm always paranoid too. My wife could tell you. I'll be like, yo, babe, you see that car? What kind of car is that? I'm like, is it someone following us or is that a police car following us?
Mhm.
Because I'm always worried about both. Because one is like, what you running, what you following me for? Because you can clearly see my record. My record is squeaky clean except for the DUI. That is the only thing that's on my driving record that's really on there for you to pull me over for anything. So I'm always a slightly paranoid, especially with everything that's gone on in the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Hence why we also did start the podcast partly.
That's true. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. When you are aware of these things going on, don't you think that there's some reflections that you all need to do as Black men in order to address these triggers? Why am I feeling like this? What happened in my life where I'm now, it's causing me to be paranoid? Because that paranoia can, to me, it can escalate to maybe some form of anxiety. And I guess, Justice, it is anxiety, isn't it?
I thought about this, and me and Mike actually spoke about this.
Mhm.
So it could be, right? But my philosophy is it really anxiety if it helps you to survive day to day? That'd be my whole thing, because people paint anxiety in such a bad way. So it can be good anxiety, it can be bad anxiety, and I'm cool with that. But once the anxiety becomes a stress, we got a problem. So I'm gonna answer your question. Yes, it's anxiety, but I think it's a good anxiety for me because I don't think I actually want that to stop. Because the moment I allow that to stop, that and I don't learn from that trauma,
Mhm.
it's like that could be the day.
Got it. I understand. Thank you. Thank you
Mm.
for explaining that.
Facts. Facts.
Thank you. I see. I'm glad we're having this conversation because, some of us would have never thought,
Mm.
especially Black women, would have never thought,
Mm-hmm.
about that. So how do you see in your practice, in your conversations, how do you all see childhood trauma impacting Black men and Black boys?
Okay. I'll start. So I've seen it with my mentoring group, right?
Mhm.
So we deal with all children of color in Patterson, Hispanic, Black, African, Jamaican, from international, you name it. They're with our group. And with the children that we mentor, like we see all different types of family homes. A lot of them, more times than not, are female led. So that's the first thing that I connect to them on, because or I kind of feel their pain, because that they know about their father, that their father is around, but how often do they speak to them? How often do they see them? How often do their father support them on different things? So that trauma right there, I saw it on a daily basis. I'm not there as much anymore,
Mhm.
since I'm down in Tampa, but I saw it and I felt it, and I realized that was a major thing with me. And kind of working through my trauma, um, me just honestly starting to have a conversation with my father again.
Mhm.
Um, and that was the key for me. That was one thing, and honestly, my wife pushed me to do it. Um, she wanted to meet my father because that was the only living parent that I do have.
Right.
Like I had his contact information, I knew where he was at, but I wasn't making the effort to go see him or talk
Mm.
to him that frequently.
Mhm.
That was a part of the trauma that I was not trying to let go.
Mm.
Um, at some
Mm.
point, and I think even still, like I didn't even start to forgive my father for all the stuff that I dealt with growing up, and he wasn't around, or he wasn't there to advise me, or what he did himself, um, and it traumatized me. But with conversations with her, conversations with Just, and Just probably is gonna end up sharing this at some point.
Okay.
Like even his relationship with him and his father, how he told me it was getting better, and I'm like, man, like me and Justin talking, I'm like, yo, I can't have my boy doing this and I'm not doing this. I'm
Mm.
not listening to his words, because we'll bounce ideas off of each other, advice off of each other all the time, and
Mhm.
if I'm giving him advice about one thing and he's listening to it, but I'm not, it makes me a hypocrite. So I basically started listening to my own advice, his advice, and my wife's advice, and extended that hand out to my father. I'm not saying we're all the way all buddy buddy, but the bridge of conversation of being more open and reaching out to each other has been open. So
Mm.
so
No, I respect that. Um, so I'm gonna speak to the matrimony side of things because
Okay.
I don't know if a lot of people are too hip to this. So I see a lot of couples too. That's another one of my specialties. And a lot of the black men, what I'm noticing with us is that I'm not gonna say we don't know how to be the foundation, but our foundation has many cracks in it
Yes.
because we haven't healed from our trauma. And I'm saying us because I'm a part of that as well. I had to work on my cracks as well.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of us are grown men facially and the body wise, but we still little boys.
Mm.
And I really don't have an issue with that. If you could look at my background, I got the Batman, all that. I got the kid stuff, right? Because I
mm,
believe in always be a kid because that's when you're at your most purest. But I think us as black men, because we have that trauma stacked up on us, we take that a little too far. We still playing games while we married. Like that's the reason you going off and cheating. Don't get me wrong. Some of them are just unhappy. Some of them they feel that they have their reasons. Oh, she's not doing this, or hey, they not doing this. But a lot of the times when I'm speaking to them, it's like, oh, bro, I just wanted to see if I still had it. Still had what? You see what I'm saying? Like, and that's a boy. That's that's just us when we grew up. That's how he was. Like, oh, I bet you I can get this. I bet it's
mm-hmm,
trauma though as you get older because you're dragging somebody that you said this is forever with through that
Mm-hmm.
lying basically. You didn't your vows mean nothing. So I try to have that conversation with a lot of black brothers. At first, it's kind of like it's like pulling teeth. They just like, bro, oh come on, bro, you get it. I'm like, yeah, I get it before,
mm-hmm.
but switch the roles. If she did that to you, how you feeling? So
Mm.
that's the main thing that I'm seeing a lot of with the black brothers. Now, don't get me wrong, you still have traumas of molestation, something that's huge. People don't speak about it.
Yeah.
I was molested a couple of times by women growing up. I'm talking about close women in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that's what that was. So when I became an adult, that's when I realized, like, oh, even though it's not really, let me say this properly, it's not really frowned upon as bad as it is for the vice versa. Let me say that. That
Yes.
makes sense. Um,
Yes.
because it's like everybody's ready to ride. When a queen is molested, and I love that. But when a young black boy says, "Hey, I was molested, I was touched," by who? It's always by who. That's the first question, right?
Right.
If you
Right.
say a female, they kind of go,
Oh,
"You like that? You good? Don't worry. Oh, that's manhood. You coming into manhood."
right.
Mm-hmm.
So this it's huge. It's huge. It's affecting us huge. But that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing molestation is definitely one of those ones that's popping up. And also on the marital side, you got the kings that's still stuck in the boyhood. You just
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm not telling you to. I'm not forcing you to grow up. But if you're not ready, let them let these people do what they're doing. Let them be single.
Yep.
I absolutely agree with you. For the black man, the black adult who is a man, um, if they do not want to get help,
Mm.
how where do they start with themselves as far as I'm not ready to see a therapist yet because I'm still in my lies, I'm still in my denial. Um, help us out on that piece. Where do they start?
I'll start from someone who I've acknowledged I need therapy. I already know that.
Mhm.
I haven't had the opportunity to actually go look for a therapist on my own locally because had a whole bunch of things going on the last couple of years. Um, so like now that the wedding is done, I'm down in Florida. I will take that time to go do that within the next year for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but I think one of the keys to realizing and accepting that you need therapy is to acknowledge your bad traits or your trauma that you're dealing with, hands down.
Mhm.
Um, I can look at my family, I can look at myself, and I can see where me and my sister were like, yeah, we need therapy, and like we possibly probably needed family therapy after the whole death of my mom,
Mhm.
but individuals in my immediate family weren't ready. Father wasn't ready. My brother probably still not ready. And it's just acknowledging these slight points first. I
Mhm.
think that's the first step to realizing you need therapy or acknowledge that there is a problem, right? You need to admit to it first. And like I've admitted to myself, I've had these issues. I've had the father issues. I've had missing my mom not being there. I've had not having the support as other people had from their family immediately, from distant cousins and everything. Like, even though I do have relationships with those cousins, but like growing up, I'm like, all right, where we at? Like, I can sometimes I sit to myself and I can be like, all right, I look at my wife's life because she's Puerto Rican, and I see that her immediate family, her distant cousins, everyone's been there from the beginning and been there as she grew up. And
Mhm.
I look at myself and I'm like, all right, they were here, then they disappeared for a little bit, then they came back. Like, what's up? What's the difference? But when you start to acknowledge that everyone, like, you acknowledge that you have issues, one, and then you have to also start to acknowledge that your life is not the same as everyone else's.
Mhm.
Everyone has their own situations, their own challenges, their own opportunities that they're going to deal with and go through in life. So you can only control what's happening to you
Mhm.
and deal with that first. So when you realize you need therapy, boom, do what you need to do to get yourself prepared to be in that state. Because
Mhm.
the other thing about it is people think, oh, therapy always too expensive. Therapy is affordable. You just have to look up the ways financially to check it out for you.
Right.
And that's more so now the part that I'm at now. It's I'm looking at how I'm going to do this financially
Mhm.
because I know I need it. So
Exactly.
Mike, can I just say those are bars? You went hard. So the question was for the man that knows he needs help but doesn't want to go out and get the help.
Um, yes, they're not ready for therapy just yet.
Okay.
Where did they begin with self? Yeah.
Okay. So the only thing I can do, because Mike did a number on that. The only thing I can do is tell y'all what I did. I'm gonna speak directly to y'all that are listening right now. You have to find the nearest mirror in your home, apartment, wherever you at. Car, I don't care. Find it, and I want you to not just look at it, because what we tend to do is we look at the face, right? No, I want you to look directly into the mirror and look directly into your own eyes, reflection, and tell me, do you like what you see?
mm,
That's it. That's what I did. And I immediately teared up, cried, didn't like it. And it wasn't a physical thing. It was when you do that, I don't know how to explain it. I'm not super scientific, even though I'm a therapist. I don't really the science is the science. Sometimes creatively and spiritually things happen you can't put a finger on.
Right.
That's one of those things. You look in that mirror into your eyes, you're gonna feel all types of spirit things that's happening to you. You're gonna be like, what is happening? Like, what about this time that this happened? And what
mm-hmm.
about that? And there's gonna be things in your life coming back, like flashbacks, and you got to deal with that. If you can't say, I'm healed, I'm good, I got it, on your own time, take the steps to go seek help.
Mm.
That's my answer.
That was a lot right there. Looking at the mirror, looking at yourself in the mirror. Whew, that was a good one. What would you say to Black men who feel the work is not important? The work is not important.
Mm. You want me to take that, Mike?
Yeah, bro, start. I got something after you. Go ahead.
Um, I'm big on thinking about the future.
Mhm.
And for someone to say, this is for the people that want to have children. If the work isn't important, that means your children aren't important because you're going to be a direct emulation of what they're going to want to be when they get older. So if you're not healed and living your healing life, healthiest life, that's what they're going to do.
Mm.
They're going to follow you.
Facts.
That's it. And then for those of you that say, well, I don't got to worry about that. I don't want kids. You're not the only person on this planet. We don't want to deal with the unhealthiness, the maladaptive behavior that you got going on, that we all going through right now, is we need to be practicing love, peace, and harmony as a people, as a human race right now. We don't need more people that's, me, only about me. Like, you're not gonna survive like that. So
Facts.
both ways.
Bro, yep, you hit it on his head. But I like to do analogies when he does that, right? So I already that's why I let him go first, because I knew he's gonna do that. But I like to make it simple for some people for them to understand. At your job, if you do nothing, does the job get done of whatever you do? The answer is no. So if you don't put the work in, there will be no results. No results. Point blank, period. And that's the only thing I would probably add on to this is, like, just think about it. It's a job. It's another job, even though we don't like to think of it as a job, but it is a job because you're trying to build for the future, especially if you want kids.
Absolutely. I want to ask about family and friends and things of that nature. How can we recognize when trauma is showing up with the Black man? Help us recognize it, help us to deal with it. How should we deal with this?
I'll start. I got you, bro. So one thing about me, all right, and my sister has been a master of reading me, and I would say just as too. And my wife, she's the most important person in my world right now. She's learning all these things over the last several years because she didn't know me all my life, right? She's known me within the last 6 to 7 years, right? And that's fine. But all three of these individuals can tell when something's wrong with me. And that's because I start to act out of the normal of who I am. So that's the first thing that people need to understand. If you really love someone, you better know that person, right? And when they start to show you signs that everything is not okay, start to ask questions. I'm a bubbly person, and Just would tell you that. I'm a people person. I can talk to anybody that I meet within moments. If I am cold and I do not speak, something is up. Something's brewing in my head. It may be good, it may be bad, but something is brewing in my head, and you need to ask questions for me to get out of my head, or for me to actually do something to better myself in that moment, or for keep me from doing something that I will regret later. And my sister and Just have always been the best to notice this, and my wife is learning and picking it up now. So I can honestly say, like, when was it? I think it was like, planning a wedding gets a little stressful. And he knew something was off for me. We were actually working on this season of our podcast, and like, he goes to me and be like, bro, we're gonna schedule to do all this stuff now. Once August comes, I don't want to hear anything about the podcast from you except that the episodes are released in the weekly. That is it. I don't want to hear nothing from you. You focus on your wedding because you need it. And this is without a conversation. He knew in that instance, work was getting too much, planning a wedding was getting too much. I just moved. I'm getting acclimated, and everything is all on top of me, and I'm trying to figure stuff out. He knew. Without me even saying a word, he knew. He knew I needed a moment, and what he ended up doing was taking some of the responsibility off of me that I needed to be removed.
That's good.
That's all it really is. You got to know the individual Black man specifically, because people, I don't like to make stereotypes or broad statements, but I do it anyway because most time it is true. Us as Black men, we don't try to speak, right, on our traumas, on our issues, on what we're going through. We just like to keep pushing in life and get things done when we need to get them done. I've learned I can't function like that, even though I do still fall into that from time to time. But I have people in my corner that's snapping me out of it. Keisha's, the Justas, the Stephanies, my people, my brothers. Like even my brothers do it. Mike, you too uptight. Calm down. Like it's funny. Like it was so funny because like even with the stress of the wedding weekend, it's the weekend of. You did everything. You just got to go through the door. The day of, all five of my groomsmen at a different time in their own different way was like, yo, Mike, chill out. Just Mike, I'm you for the day. Remember, you gave me that responsibility. I got you. Calm down. My brother Joe, even though we bump heads, Joe gives it to me straight. Yo, Mike, you need to chill out, man. You bugging out too much. Calm down. My other brother, we call him Minnie, but his name is Dean, or we call him ours. And he put me on, Mike, man, you doing too much. Calm down, bro. Take that to the side. Wayne, he was like, oh, Mike. He just give me a look. And then even her own brother, he's like, Papa, come on, no, everything's gonna be all right. And that's me and him talking. Like each one of my groomsmen at a different point knew, and they all was like, yo, Mike, we know. It's the stress of the day. Just calm down. And they were right.
So it's important to have a community of people that will help to keep you grounded, or that will encourage you to check yourself.
Yep.
But it also sounds like that you had to be open to accept it as well. And I think that is some of the issues that I'm seeing through, my reads on social media when there's important conversations such as this. Some of the Black men are not open to hearing that support, that encouragement, or check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yep.
That is important. Do you have any resources that Black men can reach out to as far as this particular subject?
Yeah, for sure. Get you a Black male therapist. For sure. Start there, and then I want you to go get a Black female therapist after that. I like to have both best of both worlds, so you can get two different perspectives from it. Now, if you're not ready for therapy, you have books. Mental Heal. Shout out to James Harris, that he has a great like a journal book that you can go through and get your feelings and express yourself. But can I speak to the people that love Black men real quick?
Yes.
So what I want them to understand is that this is all personal opinion. Black men are the best actors in the world. I'm not talking about movies. I'm not talking about TV shows. I'm talking about having that mask on. The world that we have to live in and the world that we live in are two different places. So what I want the people that love these Black men to do, and this is just my philosophy again, pick 5 Black men in your life, and like Mike said, set your intentions on them and just like really get to know them to the best of your ability, so that you can figure out, you know what, they're not being normal right now. Let me tap them real quick. Hey, you all right? And then when you get those 5 conquered, and I hate using conquer, but like, when you get it right to the way you want to get it, pick another 5. And then this way, you've already learned those first 5. So if they ever getting out of pocket, you can always come back. Hey, you wilding right now. Now this new 5, you taking your time, you learning something new, okay? But now you got 10. That's 10 Black men that you able to tap and go, hey, I can see you. And that's important. I can see you, because with or without the mask, that's what we don't hear as Black men. I wasn't an adult before a Black woman told me, I see you. And when she told me that, I was just like, you know what I mean? Like the hardness in me was like, what you talking about? But the boy in me was like, thank you. It hits different. So go ahead, Quinn.
Because that's what you needed to hear. That's what the child in you needed to hear. I see you. Wow.
And let me be clear. That's no knock to my mother, because my mother was phenomenal at what she did. She raised me right. But you're a parent, right? and there's no blueprint to being a parent. That goes to my father as well, because like Mike alluded to, me and him had, words and exchanges and things like that, but there's no blueprint to that. So I'm just trying to give it out the best way I can.
Mm-hmm.
Do it the best you
So,
can. Say what you got to
so
say.
what I'm hearing also from you is that you needed to be seen in another way that maybe your mom didn't see you. You needed something acknowledged within you. Wow.
It's not always on the parent. It takes.
Right.
I'm from the old school mentality. It takes a village.
Yes.
Like sometimes mom, dad won't be able to say something that uncle will.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what it is.
True. True. That is factual.
Wow. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Gentlemen, that is our time. But before we go, tell our listeners how they can connect with you and how they can tune into your podcast as well.
You got that, Mike.
I already knew he's about to give it to you. I am the marketing guru of the show. We are Black Man Misunderstood. You can find us on IG at BMM underscore podcast. We're also on TikTok at BMM podcast. We're also on Facebook. All you have to do is type in Black Man Misunderstood. We can be listened to on practically, I think, any streaming service at this point. We are on the major ones, Apple, Google, and Spotify, but we are also on the other ones on the side. We do have a YouTube page also, but we are building up the videos now, so you may not see the videos right away, but those are coming. If you want to reach out to one of us individually, you can reach out to the neighborhood therapist at the neighborhood therapist on IG. He also has a website. I don't know the website at the top of my head, but that's
all week counseling.
Hey, see, there you go. There you go. All this week counseling. And even then, you'll see all the contact information for the podcast also on there. Also, his whole story's on there for him being the therapist. The autoimmune therapy, also driving, the auto therapy. That's all up there. Also, all that information. And he'll give it to you straight like that. Me, I am Mike B underscore BMM on IG. I'm in the midst of working on my business. But I've been putting a lot of those efforts toward the podcast. With the podcast currently, I mark on the marketing schedule. I help come up with some of the content that we post. And also currently I am working on our apparel, which will be dropping shortly. Just working on the final kinks and stuff right now. And then my side hustle will be coming out where it will be more so coming up with t-shirt designs, flyers, digital banners, things of that nature. If people need help with that, and even potentially if they need help with coming up with their own business plans. I have friends and families that already talked to me. Yo, Mike, I need your help. If you can help me with this, they already have their business, but they don't know how to promote themselves. So they always ask me questions since I do all the marketing on my podcast. But also, if you wanted to get the both of us and neither one of us answers, you reach out to our DJ, our producer, Mr. DJ Daxter himself, and that is DJ Daxter. That's DJ at DAKSTER on IG. He has all our contact information, and if you really want us for the BMM podcast side of things, reach out to him and he'll get it set up through us. So that's all the contact info.
Okay. And that's the media and the business side of things. But for those of you listening, looking for therapy, I'm licensed in Georgia, Texas, and New Jersey. So definitely reach out, allosweetcounseling.com. I also just hired a queen. Shout out to Jada Love. She's also licensed in Texas. So, if you need those therapy needs, we are there for that as well.
And then I want to provide some resources for anyone that's listening. Therapy for Black Men Heal. If you need a provider, you can go to Psychology Today's directory, the Confess Project, Brother, You're on My Mind by the National Institute of Health, and lastly, The Soul of Black Men's Mental Health. Those are some resources that I've personally researched. So thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to showcase your stories, for doing your part in changing the narrative, and lastly, for keeping your commitment by being a part of the show. That means a lot. If you've enjoyed this show, please let us know. We would love to shout you out and post your comments. If you or someone you know is changing the narrative, please contact us at iChangeTheNarrative at gmail.com. We would love to share your story. For I Change the Narrative merchandise, visit iChangeTheNarrative.org. Thank you to our sponsors, So Organic, So Suave. You can follow Sauce on Instagram, and for the latest in product news and updates, visit sossd.co. Meet us here next Saturday at 1 p.m. where we'll have more great show, more great conversations. Thank you all for listening. We are out.